Hello, my name is Sampi. I'm a lecturer of Business Risk Management. Today we continue our lesson to Chapter 1 about the risk management practice. Why you study risk management? To answer to this question is, you study risk management because you don't want to lose. Fear of losing business, fear of losing project, and losing project is a very big word, right? Because some project manager, some businessmen, they have they create their business, they invest there's a lot of time, energy, money, but if they lose their business, they lose it all. They cannot recover it back. So that's why you have to study risk management. So, and another word is risk is something new all the time. One project to another different. So the risk in one project is not the same to another project. So you get fear to face the risk. But since the business, when you do business, you have to face the risk. So beside fear of the risk, you might take some time to understand the risk, right? So in order to understand the risk, you have to create the rule of the road in planning. So you plan what? You plan to identify the risk. You plan to assess the risk. You plan to develop the risk response or develop the strategy to mitigate your risk. And lastly, you can control the risk. So the risk might be considered as the threat to the company, but it's also the opportunity to the company as well, right? So sometimes you don't spend time to analyze the risk because your company going well, the project going well, and because you have a lot of potential, you have a good people in your business or in your project, so the risk might not incur during your operation or during your activity. But if the luck is go off, you might face a lot of problem. And the risk, when it happen, it like a domino. It will affect like a domino effect. It will affect from one activity to another activity. So that's why you have to understand the risk management. You have to understand it clearly before you start doing business or doing project. But remember that in this message, it doesn't mean that you all think about only risk without taking action. If you're thinking too much on the risk and without action, without taking risk, you still facing the risk. So risk you have to understand. However, you need as well to take action. You need to continue. You need to conduct your business, daily project along the way with the project. Sometimes we say that in every activity have the risk. That's why you have to manage it. So in the risk practice, after you identify the risk, you have to understand that some risks might be big, some risks might be small, some risks might be worth to take it, and some risks might not be worth to take it. So this is depend on the nature of the business or the nature of the business itself. So for example, if you go to the business trip, you have two choices. One, you can drive, or the other one, you can fly. So in your business trip, you might consider about the cost and the safety. So which one is cost more, which one is cost less, and which one is safer than the other. So you will consider also about the punctuality, arrival. If you go to the meeting, go to the business trip, and the lateness is not take into your consideration, so you might be choose something that low cost and take long time. But if you consider that if your punctuality is matter to your business, you might take another way around. But you also consider which airline that is safer, which airline which is not in good condition, and also you might consider about the road condition as well. So after all of this, you might consider about the judgment, whether you decide to choose which one in order to go for your business trip, because this factor might be considered as the risk factor for yourself. So in the previous slide, you already know that the risk factor is very important for your decision. So most of the time we consider about the cost and the schedule. For example, like the previous chapter, you already know that you want to go to the business trip, you consider about the cost and also about the timing. So, however, in the real life, cost and schedule, most of the time it's easy to measure. That's why most of the businessmen or project manager use cost and schedule as the measurement. However, in the real life, like I said, we also consider about the technical of the project or technical of the business itself. So when the business become more complicated, so the technical is also more complicated. So when the technical is more complicated, the risk also might be complicated as well, which means that the risk might happen all the time and difficult to identify because of the business itself, the nature of the business itself. So in order to identify the risk, besides using the cost and schedule, you might be use the technical performance risk. However, the technical performance is mostly is unclear, and you might use the formal methodology for evaluate the effect of decision making and foreseen the problem. With this, help you to identify the practical and effective of workaround for achieving the project goal. So to sum up with this cost and schedule is very easy to understand. For example, if you cannot finish your project on time, so your client might be turn around your product, turn around your project, and you might lose all the money, all the benefit that you get from the project, and you have to return all the favor back to the client, and that is incur the cost. So remember that when you run the business, you have to pay fixed cost and variable cost as well. So by using the cost and schedule to measure the risk is reasonable but not accuracy. So you might consider the technical analysis as well, especially the technical performance risk of the project. Okay, now we continue to a systematic process. To access with the risk, you have to use a systematic process. Actually, you can use other process, you can use other approach to access on the risk. However, your approach might be unique to the company. But if the company to have want to find the third party opinion on the risk, they might not be able to access the risk, so they might spend a lot of time reaccessing the risk of your company because they use different approach. So in order to have the same comparability among the risk assessor, we recommend that you use a systematic process where the systematic process here is based on the PMI book to access on the risk. So the systematic risk will have 6 process. The step 1, you have to plan the risk management. Step 2, you identify risk. Step 3, qualify risk. Step 4, quantify risk. Step 5, plan risk response. And step 6, monitor and controlling risk. What is plan risk management mean? In this case, we establish project risk infrastructure and project-specific risk management plan. This includes creating risk language, risk tolerance, and the threshold. So, to plan the risk management, you have to have the structure, specific structure. You understand the whole process of the business, and then you start with the planning. So, before you start plan the risk, you have to use the same language of the risk, or you have to use the same threshold. For example, your company might be risk if the coverage ratio lower than 10%, or your or debt to equity ratio is less than 60%. So this is the threshold that you make. So how much can you bear with the risk? So after this, you can go to identify the risk. So to identify the risk, we describe the event that will have potentially negative or positive impact on the project, with the description that include the event that may happen and its specific impact. So like I said before, the risk might be happen based on the event, and the event can generate the probability of the risk and also the impact on the project or impact on the business. So you need to identify this, what might be happen to the company. Then you go to qualify risk. Qualify risk is about we evaluate risk according to non-numeric assessment protocol. What is the non-numeric assessment protocol? Non-numeric assessment protocol is about the quality of the conversation in the company. It's about the story behind the risk behind the business. So we understand the story about the quality that unmeasurable based on the statistic. So we can collect the data based on the conversation with the stakeholder of the company. The quantify risk is we evaluate the most significant risk and the project as a whole according to their numeric probability and impact. So this is most of the project, most of the business, but we analyze the risk. We consider about the numeric, about the data more, which is, for example, if you cannot sell, you cannot increase sale by 20%, or you cannot go to the break-even point, we consider the company have risk, or sometimes the profit less than the expense. So this is the quantify risk analysis. After the quantify risk, you can do the plan risk response. So in the plan risk response, we determine, evaluate, and communicate strategy to deal with or preclude the risk, which means that we can mitigate the risk. You respond to what happened what happened in the business or in the project. And finally, you go to the monitor and control the risk. So in monitor and control the risk, we put risk management and response plan in action. So if you plan, you collect all the data, you plan the strategy, but if you do not take action, so you might not be able to mitigate or resolve the problem. Now you already know about the PMI process, systematic process. This is one process. Like I mentioned earlier, that there's a lot of process on the risk assessment. So here, two examples from different country. One is the U.S. Military Defense Acquisition University. They apply also six-step process that include the planning, identification, then they do the analysis, then they handling the risk, monitoring, and lastly implementation on the strategy. So this is for the Military Defense Acquisition University. So for the other one is called from the Australian government, Department of the Commerce. Apply also a six-step process involving the establish the contact, identifying and defining risk, conducting analysis, conducting evaluation, developing and implementation statement, and the reporting, updating, and the managing the risk. So there's also a six step. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the last one is 6. All of these 6. Yeah. Okay. So even the word they use are different, but the meaning of the assessing risk is the same. So they do planning, identifying, qualifying, quantifying. They plan the risk response, and last they do the controlling and monitoring. So it's the same. Okay. So what the project manager should do in the business? Most of the business, they sometimes they not taken care of the risk. They wait until the problem occur in their business, then they try to find a solution. But in the big company, big corporation, they do proactive measurement method approach. They do the proactive approach before the problem or the risk happen to the company. So the duty of the project manager or business manager, they should perform document risk management activity. Both they do the qualitative and also quantitative. So these two, they can compare with each other and then they can produce a good strategy. And secondly, they they have to understand that all activity, they also have risk. Even the activity of the company or the business is small or less critical, but they still have some risk. So all the activity relate to the business, the risk, the project manager or business manager, they need to assess their risk to ensure that the success will happen. And also lastly, they have to determine also the project based on the cost, schedule, and performance. So this is the duty of the project manager or business manager. To summarize in this chapter, first, you have to understand that risk management is essential for every project, every business. Don't wait until the last minute or don't wait until bad thing happen. You underline the risk, you do the risk management. There are two benefits from there. First, you can understand the threat to the company. Second, you can find the opportunity in there. Secondly, when you do the risk management, you have to do it with the systematic process. You can not do based on your emotion or based on something that you feel that rise. Because from one person to another, the perspective may change. So in order to have the same page among the group, you need to use the systematic process. Lastly, you do all the project, all the risk assessment. You have to do it with the document. So you need to make the document in order to analyze the risk. Okay, for